Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Hey there fellow Cheapskates, welcome to the show. We help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and now it's time for another edition of Age of the Realms. This is our series of Warhammer Age of Sigmar battle reports. This is battle report number 27. It is a 2,000 point battle that is fought between my friend Lady Domina with her house Daechir, the Golden Reavers of Skyros, of the Darkling Covens, versus yours truly of the Esoteric Order of the Thousand Sons of the Disciples of Tzeentch. So this is a 2,000 point fight, and this is actually the very first battle report that we've done using the new rules generated from the General's Handbook for 2017. So you're going to see some alliance abilities for the Darkling Covens being used in this battle report in Lady Domina's army. You'll also see some of the point changes that have taken place in both of our army lists as well. At the same time, I'm also debuting my very first major change to my Disciples of Tzeentch army. I've made a lot of changes in the units and the layout of my army, and I'll go and talk about each part of those changes in my army list as we go through the rosters. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's go through the army lists. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the Esoteric Order of the Thousand Sons. This is my 2,000 point Disciples of Tzeentch army. First of all, the very first thing I added to my army is an Arcanite Cabal Battalion. Basically, to get that battalion, you need to have a Magister, a Zangor Shaman, as well as a Fate Master. And when you get these three guys, they kind of get some additional bonuses. First of all, you pick one of the guys to be the Master of Fate, which is basically the Master of the Cabal. In this case, I use my Fate Master to do that. And every time you roll a d6 on a 4, 5, or 6, you get to add another die to your Destiny pool, which is also kind of cool. At the same time, if these three characters are within 9 inches of each other, they could also cast additional spells. So that's also kind of neat as well. So for my Arcanite Battalion, Cabal Battalion, I have Alcotelbrass, the Champion Tzeentch. He is my Fate Master, who's also my General. He's got the Arch Sorcerer Command trait, so that way he gets 2 extra spells from the Lore of Fate. He's carrying the Crown of Conquest, so that way if I roll up a 5 or more on a d6, I can dish out 2 command abilities. That's a major change that they made in the General's Handbook in 2017. Before, it was automatically given, you get to use Q command abilities, but now you have to roll for it now. And the 2 additional spells I got for my Fate Master was Arcane Suggestion as well as Glimpse of the Future. Glimpse of the Future obviously is because you get some good bonuses to gaining your more Destiny dice, and Arcane Suggestion because making your enemies strike themselves is just kind of fun. Next I have a Magister. His name is Barnabas the Scrivener. I've also given him the Bolt of Change as well as the Bolt of Tzeentch. This guy's very powerful too because if he rolls doubles on his spell casting, he gets to cast an additional spell. His Bolt of Change is very, very powerful, and that it can summon up some Chaos Spawn. And then finally we have Skeksis of Dark Crystals. He is my Zangor Shaman. I gave him the Boon of Mutation spell, as well as a Shield of Fate to protect his Zangor. And I got this guy because one, he's a very powerful model, gives additional bonuses to Zangor units, and plus he packs a punch with magic as well. So that pretty much makes up my Arcanite Cabal Battalion. Next up we have Skrakalikos, the Warden of Pathways. This is my Lord of Change. I love this character. This guy's a really beast when it comes to magic. One of the nice things about him, I also gave him Wellspring of Arcane Might as his demonic ability, so he gives +1 to casting abilities for any heroic Tzeentch demon wizards which are in range of him. So that's kind of a nice thing as well. He also benefits from his own bonus as well. I also gave him the spells, the Tzeentch's Firestorm as well. Infernal Gateway and Tzeentch's Firestorm are very, very powerful. They dish out a lot of mortal wounds if you get those spells off. Plus, the nice thing about Lords of Change is when you roll a 2d6 to cast your spell, if any one of those whatever the highest die is, that's what the second die automatically becomes. So if you roll like a 4 or 5 and you roll like a 1, the 1 becomes the 4 or the 5 that you have. So it's pretty awesome that way as well. So very, very happy to have this model in my army. After that, we have Caliban, the Horror Shepherd of the Waste. He's my Ogroi Thaumaturge. He automatically has a Fire Blast spell that comes with him as well. I also gave him the Infusion Arcanum ability, so that way he can cast spells and get +1 to hit, +1 to wound, because that is always a good thing. The Ogroi Thaumaturge is a beast. That guy carries 8 wounds. He's got some really good attacks. Causes D3 mortal wounds with leaves an inch of an enemy unit if he charges that turn. So a very, very powerful guy. I plan on running this guy with my Pink Horrors that I have in my army for obvious reasons. The Fire Blast ability gets him to get some more Pink Horrors, and Brimstone and Blue Horrors to help out as well. Plus that Infusion Arcanum spell could be used to buff up his own abilities or buff up the abilities of the Pink Horrors as well. So altogether, just a very deadly combination. So that is my Ogroi Thaumaturge. Now we got done talking about my leaders, it's now talk about my battle lines, the very first of which is the Dunwich Horrors. These are my unit of 10 pink horrors of Tzeentch. They got full command as well. Very, very good unit. They got shooting abilities, which makes them really nice as well. Plus a really pretty decent in close combat as well, especially if you give them, that infusion Arcanum spell, that's really help them out to kind of make them a little bit better in close combat. But the thing that you get about this unit is that it tar pits like nobody else with an Age of Sigmar. Every single time one of these pink horrors gets killed, they automatically split into 2 blue horrors, which are 2 more little monsters with weaker stats. And every single time you kill one of those blue horrors, they split again into 2 brimstone horrors. So as you can see, this unit kind of grows exponentially as time goes on. So if you need to bog down an enemy position, or if you need to seize an objective, pink horrors are the way to go. Plus, when you have these guys being buffed up with an ogre with thaumaturge like I'm running in with Caliban, they make it a very, very effective unit, and I'm really excited to see exactly how these guys perform. This is the very first time using my army, so can't wait to see what they can do. Another battle line unit that I have are 10 Carrick Acolytes. These are my Chanters of Change. These guys have full command. They're packing a Scroll of Dark Arts as well as a Volk Arc, and they also are carrying paired Curse Blades as well. The paired Curse Blades gives them +1 to hit, so it makes them a little bit more effective in close combat. Just like their pink horror counterparts, these guys have what's ability called Sorcerer's Bolts. They get the roll up 4 up to hit, 4 up to wound, 1 shot apiece. They get up to originally I think it's a 12-inch range originally, but if you have a 10 models, you can give them a Scroll of Dark Arts, which increases the range of those Sorcerer's Bolts up to 18 inches. So very, very nice. These guys are good in close combat. They're good in shooting. Just kind of like a good all-around basic group of guys to carry around. Also with their Volk Arc, if enemy caster within range cast a spell, you roll d6. If you roll like a 6 up, cause a mortal wound on that guy. So mortal wounds are always kind of a nice thing. So that's one of my units of Carrick Acolytes. And because one unit of Carrick Acolytes is good, I have a second unit of Carrick Acolytes. These guys are the Coven of Morpheus. Their outfit exactly the same thing. They have full command, paired Curse Blades. They also have a Dark Scroll of the Dark Arts, as well as a Volk Arc. And these guys are just like another unit that I'm running with my army as well. So yeah, another unit of 10 Carrick Acolytes. And then, of course, we have my Zangor. If you're taking a Tzeentch Arcanite army or Disciples of Tzeentch army and you don't have Zangors in your army, you are doing it wrong. This is my Changelings. These are 20 Zangors of full command. These guys are packing paired blades, so that we get +1 hit as well. I also got a couple of guys there with some great blades and some mutants in there as well. Just a vicious, vicious group of fighters. They get 2 attacks apiece. They get additional attacks if they have a lot of members if their numbers are higher within their group. They also get buffs from any heroes or wizards that are nearby them as well. They cause mortal wounds for every wizard that's within 9 inches of them. You roll a d6 and a 4 up. They cause a mortal wound. So very, very powerful unit of Changelings. Plus, they're also beastmen as well. So because of that, they get to both run and charge in the same turn as well. So just a meat grinding unit when it comes to hand-to-hand combat. One of the best units out there that is for the Disciples of Tzeentch. Really excited to see these guys get mixed in to see exactly what happens when they throw down. So yeah, these are my Changelings. And now we go on to my other units. This is the Colors Out of Space. This is my unit of 6 Screamers of Tzeentch. I got 6 of these guys. The reason why I got this is for 2 reasons. One, they move very, very quickly. They have a 16-inch range. These guys just fly across the battlefield, getting to wherever you need to get to. Plus, another thing is their lamp-free attacks, bite attacks. When you take up against monsters, they inflict D3 wounds apiece when they have a successful hit. So these things just kind of like swarm around a monster, kind of like a Sharknado, I'm imagining, and just taking chunks out of monsters and just eating them alive. And that's the reason why I'm bringing them. A lot of members of my gaming group bring monsters on the table, so these guys are my answers to that. Plus, it's kind of like a nice unit to carry around to kind of bodyguard my Lord of Change as well. My Lord of Change will be running with these guys and kind of going to flanking positions and taking out some high value targets, and that's pretty much what I'm going with from this force. Plus, they also can be summoned up again if you take any casualties. Just a good all-around unit, and I'm really excited to see how these guys turn out. And then finally, the last addition to my army is the Shadow over Innistrad. This is my Mutolith Vortex Beast of Tzeentch, and no army is complete without this miniature. This guy's a beast. He heals up wounds, decent in close combat, but what you really want him for is his wave of change ability. Basically causes magical spells within 15 inches during the command phase, cause all kinds of problems. It causes hexes for your opponents, so they take -1 penalties. It causes mortal wounds. If you roll a 6, you cause mortal wounds, and then you also summon up Chaos Spawn in the process of doing so. So it's a really awesome unit, just a really nice kind of flanking, just kind of get into your face and start messing with you type of monster that I really like about this army. And so yeah, that will pretty much round out my army for this one. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to put on some background music. I'm going to run through Lady Domina's list real quick. If you want to see exactly what she's taking for this battle report, feel free to pause and check it out at your own leisure. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that takes directly to the deployment phase. As you can see, we are fighting on a 4x6 tables. I am fighting on the near side of the board. My opponent, Lady Domina, she's deployed on the far side of the table. As you see, we kind of went with a diagonal type of deployment area. We're about 24 inches apart in the midpoint. We got a lot of forest as well as standing stones on this battlefield, so kind of like a little sparse bit of terrain throughout the entire battleground that we'll be fighting in. As you can see, we just kind of lined up right against each other. She's got most of her infantry located in the center, left-hand side of her army, as well as her monsters, as well as her characters on the right-hand side of the army. My army, most of my infantry is concentrated in the center. I got Screamers and Lord Tremendous on the left-hand side. Sorry, not Lord Tremendous. Skrakalikos on the left-hand side. And I also have my Mutileth Vortex Beast on the right-hand side as well. Characters are also in the center lines as well. Pretty much the plan here is to flank with my Mutileth Vortex Beast on the right-hand side, flank with my Screamers as well as Skrakalikos on the left-hand side, and then kind of concentrate forward with my Carrick Acolytes, Pink Horrors, as well as my characters in the back to kind of buff them with magic. And of course, I got my core Zangor in the very, very back to put in reserves and to kind of punch through wherever the opportunity kind of arises. And that's pretty much how I'm kind of laid down. That's the tactic I'm kind of going for this battle report. Here's a close of my left-hand flank with my colors out of space as well as Skrakalikos. They border with pathways. Their job is to go directly at the monsters on the left-hand side of Lady Domina's lines and eat those guys alive, and then to cast magic and to shoot and to cause all kinds of havoc, and that's what I'm pretty much doing on the left-hand flank. In the center lines is where the majority of my army is located at the core of my infantry. First of all, I got kind of like a three-line kind of setup deployment for my armies. On the very front line, I have 2 units of Carrick Acolytes flanking my Pink Horrors of Tzeentch, and the reason why that is the case is because that's my firing line. These guys get to shoot, and so I want to get up close and personal, so that way I can start whittling down my enemies with some long-range fire, and then before I commit these guys to charge them. These guys are good at close combat, but you really want them for their shooting abilities, which you really want them for. Right behind them, of course, I have my Fate Master on the left-hand side. That's Hellbrass, as well as Caliban, the Horror Shepherd of the Wastes. He's right behind his Pink Horse because he's the shepherd that kind of tends to his flock of Pink Horrors. And the right hand side, I got Barnabas the Scrivener, who's my Magister as well. They're located in that line, and the reason why is because they have a little triangular shape. If you'll notice, the very, very back of my army, I got Skexes of Dark Crystals. That is my Zangor Shaman. These guys are within 9 inches of each other, this little 9-inch triangle of death, so that way if I want to cast additional spells, I can do them. They can lend magical support to each other. They can also lend magical support to their troops, as well as provide some offensive spells and destroy my enemies that way. And then, of course, right behind them, of course, I have my Zangors, my Changeling. That's the core of my army. The idea is that I use my Carrick Acolytes as well as my Pink Horrors to kind of punch holes and to kind of like cause some disruptions throughout the front battle lines of my opponent's army. And then wherever there's an opening, I'm going to send my Zangors in and just kind of crush them that way. So that way I have like a really good core of solid infantry that just can cause all kinds of problems. Plus those Zangors carry 2 wounds apiece, so they're kind of they will last as well. And then obviously I have my Zangor Shaman behind them because it also gives them additional bonuses to hit and their attacks and stuff. So that's why he is located there. So that breaks up the deployment here in the center lines. And hanging out on the right-hand flank all by himself is the Shadow over Innistrad. That is my Mutileth Vortex Beast. He's there to kind of protect my right-hand flank, also to harass my enemies as my main lines move up forward to engage them in close combat. That Aura Mutation spell is really, really powerful. I'm going to plan on using that to spam a lot. My opponent's lines and cause some pain that way, get that a lot of mortal wounds, what I'm kind of going for. At the same time, it can also hold his own into combat if he has to. So that pretty much makes up the deployment on my right-hand flank. And finally, we have my Dice of Destiny. I have 9 of them. What ends up happening, in case you're unaware how his Tzeentch alliance ability works, that you take 9d6, you roll them, whatever numbers you get, you keep. And what you can do is you can switch them out for different aspects of the battle report. So things like spell results to hits, runs, charges, that kind of thing. You just kind of use them as you want to. The nice thing about my army is I can replenish my Destiny dice as time goes on throughout the battle. So plus I got magic spells that can do that too. So that's kind of a nice thing about that. As you can see, my Destiny dice, I got 2 1s, a 2, 2 4s, 2 5s, and 2 6s, which would be really, really helpful as this battle continues onward. Alright, let's go and talk about the Darkling Covens with Lady Domina. On her left-hand flank, she's got a pretty solid left-hand flank. Taking point, she's got Rathric the Maw, which is a Charybdis on the left-hand side. Same thing with Virza the Broken, he's in the center. That's her War Hydra. Behind the both of them, she's got Morathi, which is her, not her general, but she's a really powerful magic caster. She's from the old editions of Warhammer, so she's located there. And then right next to them, of course, you got the Beastmaster on Manticore. That is Rakarth Daechir on Kalibos. That guy has, I believe it's called Sustained by Misery, so every time he causes wounds in combat, he heals himself up 3d3 wounds. Makes it very, very powerful that way as well. I believe that's his command trait. He also has a Relic Blade, which gives him additional +1 to his damage as well. And right behind them, of course, you got her two Dark Elf Repeater Bolt Throwers. Those things fire 12 shots apiece for 24 shots total. Rend 1, those things are very, very deadly, and I am not looking forward to having to grapple with those. And then the center portion of the lines where most of our army is located at. She has two units of Dark Shards numbering 20 guys on either side. Right in this mech in the center, she's got a unit of 20, I believe, Dread Spears, what they're called. And also right in front of them, on the left-hand side, you got her Doomfire Warlocks. On the right-hand side, you also have her Dark Riders, which are her Shadowrunners. Now, the new rules for the Darkling Covens in the new General's Handbook, what ends up happening is that the bonuses to hit and to wound and stuff that these units get, if they're within 1 inch of, they normally have 20 guys per unit, has been expanded upon. So for example, if you have a unit of 10 crossbowmen or Dark Shards, and they're within a certain amount of inches of, let's say, a Dread Spear unit, they count as being 20 models, and plus get that +1 to hit bonus when it comes to the shooting phase. So it's kind of one of the really cool rules that came out with the new rules that the Darkling Covens get with their Allegiance ability. So Lady Domina has a really powerful core. She's got a lot of shooting within those units. Those guys fire 2 shots apiece, plus she gets +1 to hit because she's within range of each other. Same thing with the armor saves that our Darkling Coven guys get as well, because within range of the other members of the army. So very, very devastating. Going to be a really hard nut to crack on this part. So I'm kind of anxious to see exactly what ends up happening. So with deployment over, ladies and gentlemen, we go directly to the top of turn number 1 and we roll for initiative. Alright, that takes the top of turn number 1 for the Darkling Covens. Lady Domina won the initiative on this part. In the command phase, she gave Inspiring Presence over to her unit of not Dark Shards, her Doomfire Warlocks, which are located between the forest there as well as the Standing Stone. Pretty much, she just started sending her guys forward, normal movement up forward. She sent up her Light Cavalry first, the Doomfire Warlocks on the left-hand side between the forest and the Standing Stones. At the same time, she also moved up her Dark Riders between the two forests on the right-hand side as well. Actually, she's using them kind of as bait to kind of lure me out, is what she's kind of doing at that part. At the same time, she also moves up her rest of her army, her Dark Shards as well as her Dread Spears, moves above no normal 6 inches as well, because she plans on shooting with the next turn as well. At the same time, she also moves up her monsters to those forests, kind of takes up flanking positions to get kind of engaged, get kind of closer to deal with me head on. And that pretty much makes the move phase on this one. Here's a close-up of her left-hand flank. As you can see, the Dark Rider, her Shacklemore Seers, her Doomfire Warlocks are moving up really, really close, as well as our Monsters and Monster Riders are getting up some good cover positions here on the left-hand side. And here's a close-up of the 60 Dark Elves I'm going to have to fight against and try to kill to the man, who are making up the movement of the center lines. At the same time, she also moved up her Dark Riders up to the right-hand side between those forests as well, to kind of give them cover bonuses. Unfortunately for Lady Domina, during the shooting phase, she was under the impression that her crossbows actually went 18 inches, but when we looked up at the rules, her Dark Shards can only shoot 16 inches, so that was kind of a tragic thing for her. She was unable to bring up much of her firepower, which would have not really mattered anyways, because in order for her to get within range, you'd have to run to do that as well. So, you know, for her, most of her shooting did not take place, unfortunately. The only unit that was able to shoot, however, were her Dark Riders. She did open up with her Dark Riders with her repeater crossbows onto my Mule of Vortex Beast, so the Shadow of Innistrad took 3 wounds on that part. So that was kind of sad. I am kind of sad whenever my monster does take wound. However, he does heal D3 wounds, so maybe I'll get lucky and he'll heal up and he'll just be perfectly fine during the next round. So there is no combat and no losses have taken place. There's no battle shock test. With that being said, we go to the bottom turn number 1 for the Disciples of Tzeentch. Alright, so that takes the turn 1 for the Disciples of Tzeentch. The very first thing we do is the hero phase. I have a very in-depth hero phase because this army is built to shoot as well as to use magic. So the very first thing I do is I take my Leader's a Command ability. Basically allows me to roll a d6 whenever I have a Tzeentch hero or unit within 9 inches of my character, and I roll dice. If I roll this number, I get to reroll. In this case, it was 1, so that was kind of nice. Get to reroll any 1s that I have for any of my values, which is pretty epic to begin with. So that part was kind of nice. I did try to get off my Inspiring ability. I tried to use my Crown of Conquest to give Inspiring Presence off into one of my units, but unfortunately I rolled like a 3, so I was unable to get that second command ability. Really kind of sore that they changed the rules a bit on the Crown of Conquest, but you know, it's Warhammer. It's Age of Sigmar. They're gonna nerf things eventually, so oh well. And the very first thing I also do is I take Squawk the Word of Pathways. I have him cast Summon up a Lord of Change. I rolled a 6 and a 5. Automatically get to roll up another one to make it to a 6 as well because of his abilities that he has. He gets +1 for his Arcane Might spell, so I cast a 13 on my spell. Unfortunately for Lady Domina, she was not within range to unbind that spell. And bam, I sum up another Lord of Change. I put him 9 inches away from Marathi as well, so that way he's 18 inches, up to 8 inches away from Kalikos, 9 inches away from my opponents, and now I have another Lord of Change summoned up in the left-hand flank. That way he can do some shooting with his Rod of Sorcery and cause all kinds of problems for my opponents. So that took the place of the magic phase here on the left-hand side. And because my magic doesn't quit, I cast Infernal Gateway onto that unit of, what's it called? The unit of Doomfire Warlocks that was located there a little bit earlier, and I just wiped those guys off the table. I rolled a lot of 1s from my wounds, where I was rolling to see if I can get any more wounds. So because of that, I got to re-roll a lot of those 1s as well, managed to blow those guys away off the table, so that part was pretty epic as well. At the same time, I believe I cast a spell from my general as well. I think I cast Arcane Bolt as well, so the amount of mortal wounds that went to that unit was enough to just table those guys. So now Doomfire Warlocks are DOT. Meanwhile, on the right-hand flank, Barnabas the Scrivener, my Magister, opens up the Bolt of Change, manages to kill 1 Dark Rider, inflicts another wound. I got some maximum rolls with his mortal wounds, so that was kind of nice as well. I used one of my command dice, my dice of Destiny, in order to get that spell off, as you can see right there in that picture. Managed to summon up another Chaos Spawn as a process of doing that, so that part was kind of cool. Also during the magic phase, I also cast Infusion Arcanum onto my unit of Pink Horse. Those guys get +1 to hit as well as +1 to wound, which is going to be really important for my shooting phase because I plan on getting within range to do some shooting with my Pink Horse. And I believe I also cast off Mystic Shield onto my unit of Carrick Alkalies over here on the right hand side as well. And the reason why I cast that spell is because I rolled a double to get that Bolt of Change off for my Magister, so I took a second spell, cast Arcane Shielding, so now these guys have a +1 to the armor save, which is always a good thing as well. For my Mutilated Vortex Beast, I managed to heal up the 3 wounds I was injured onto him, so that was pretty epic. And then I used my Mutilated Vortex Beast's Arrow Mutation ability. I was within range of 15 inches. I rolled a d6 to consult the table exactly what kind of effect I had. I rolled a 6. That caused d6 mortal wounds to be inflicted on this unit. I believe I inflict 3 mortal wounds. I killed... Yeah, that's what exactly happened. I carried the 1 Dark Rider who was carrying a floating wound. I killed another Dark Rider as well, because these guys are all carrying 2 wounds apiece. Now, the rule also stipulates for every single kill that you get with that ability, a new Chaos Spawn pops up as well. So now we have 3 Chaos Spawn on this right hand flank to deal with these Dark Riders. I could also send these guys to deal with those Dark Shards there on the right hand side as well, and kind of like start messing around with my opponent's program as well. And so that makes it the magic, the hero phase on the right hand side. And then finally I used my General's Master of Fate ability because he is the master of the Arcanite Cabal that we're using. I rolled a d6, I rolled a 5, and I got to roll another d6 add to my Destiny pool, and I rolled a 6 for that part. So because I got to replenish the 6 I used in my last phase when I was using the magic. So that was pretty awesome as well. So we're back to full loaded 9 Destiny dice. So with hero phase over, we go directly to the move phase. As you can see, I start sending my troops forward to start massing onto my enemy's positions. On the left hand side, I move up and fly up my screamers and sneak my colors out of space. I get the kind of like a horseshoe shape because I plan on taking on Veers of the Broken, which is my Lady Domina's War Hydra. Plan on taking that guy out pretty quickly. I also move up both my Lords of Changes, both Skrullikos as well as Galrausch. Move them there on the left hand side and get kind of like an L-shaped formation, so that way they can open up the Rods of Sorcery onto Marathi. My plan is to just kind of shoot her off the tables, what I'm planning on doing as well. And my center lines, I move up my guys up just enough inches so that way they're within 18 inches of those main battle lines, so that way they're in range of Lady Domina's units. At the same time, because she only has a range of 16 inches versus my range 18, she's 2 inches short of shooting me, so that gives me the ability to shoot at her and not worry about taking a return fire. The only problem I got to worry about is those bolt throwers in the back. Both of my Lords of Changes are within range, same thing with my Screamers, so that could be kind of scary as well. At the right hand side, I also move up my Chaos Spawn. They have random movement. I kind of move them, kind of get like a little semicircle to get ready to charge into those Dark Riders and finish them off. And then I move up the Shadow of Innistrad and I march. I believe I run him is what I do, and he's like right outside of those Autumn Woods there on the right hand side. So that way he can start using his Orb Mutation abilities in the next hero phase. And that pretty much makes it the move phase for my army. Here's a close-up of my Screamers and my Lords of Changes, getting ready to put some hurt here on the left-hand flank of my opponent. I plan on shooting Marathi and killing her off the table so that my opponent loses his magic abilities, and at the same time sending in my Screamers to eat more of those monsters alive, which will be kind of cool to see. I just want to see what these guys can do. I want to see if they're worth the points. And here's a close of my newly summoned Spawn, getting ready to charge into those Dark Riders, eating them alive, and the Mutilated Vortex Beast giving support so that we can use his Orb Mutation ability during the next hero phase if I get a chance. So moving over, go directly to the shooting phase. Imagine only costs 4 wounds onto Marathi. Marathi actually carries 6 wounds on her character, so that part was kind of sad. I was hoping to kill in the very first round of shooting, so she might be around to cause me problems during the during her hero phase. So that part was kind of sad. Not looking forward to see how that goes. So that's the shooting that took place here on the left-hand side. However, the shooting phase over here in the center of the table, I took my Carrick Alkalites, both units, as well as my Pink Horrors, and I also took my Magic shooting ability as well. I had all those guys concentrate fire into that unit of Dark Shards, and Dark Dread Spears, and I atomized that unit. I killed 16 people with all the shots that I was getting off. Unfortunately for Lady Domina, it came to her save. She was just rolling really poorly. She was rolling a bunch of ones, a bunch of twos. A lot of her rerolls were not going very well for her, so because of that, she lost a ton of troops in her main center of her lines. It was absolutely devastating to see all the shooting that was taking place, and I was imagining all these green fireballs flying across the battlefield and destroying those Dread Spears like it was nobody's business at all. So yeah, very, very devastating as well for Lady Domina. I also managed to kill her hero, who was her battle center bearer for that unit as well, so that was kind of sad for Lady Domina. So things are looking pretty good for me, not so great for Lady Domina at this point. So with the shooting phase over and a YOLO in the air, I decided to charge my units in there and start engaging people in close combat. First thing I did is I took Galrausch, which was my newly summoned Lord of Change. I charged him directly into Lady Domina's Beast Lord on Manticore, because I decided to get that guy kind of pinned down in close combat, so that way he can't land any real support at the same time. At the same time, I decided to risk it and charge in Skrokali Cause into Marathi. My hope is that that'll be my very first combat that I'll pull off, and hopefully I can just kill her off and be done with it. That kind of leaves the rest of my guys exposed, because you alternate combats in Age of Sigmar, but that's the risk I'm willing to take, because if any Screamers die, I can always summon up new ones. And speaking of my Screamers, on the right hand side, I charge in my colors out of space. I have all 6 of my crew monsters kind of surrounding Virgil the Broken and planning on eating that guy alive in a swarming vortex of teeth, claws, and just eating him alive is basically what I'm planning on doing on that part. Over here on the right hand flank, I also charge in my 3 Chaos Spawn into those Dark Riders. I mean, they're only an inch away, so it's not surprising those guys actually made that charge at all. During the combat phase, Skrokali, the Warden of Pathways, just absolutely just destroyed and put the Kirby to Marathi on that part. Had no problem killing her. I believe it was his Rod of Sorcery that actually kind of, not his Rod of Sorcery, his Staff of Tzeentch, I believe is what it was, that kind of did it, just kind of, crushed her with his staff and just kind of killed her out of the bat. So that part was kind of cool as well. So now my opponent's magic abilities are totally gone, so she won't be able to, Lady Domina will not be able to combine any of my spells or cast spells in her next hero phase, so that was kind of cool. At the same time, combat between Galrausch as well as Rakarth Daechir. The combat was absolutely brutal. Managed to inflict 8 wounds onto that Beast Rider, so he's got 2 more left because that guy carries 10 wounds total. He in turn managed to cause 2 wounds onto me. Unfortunately, Domina, she was just rolling really poorly for her attacks. None of her attacks were going off. She was rolling like a bunch of 1s and 2s. It's absolutely miserable to see that happen for her. She managed to get 2 wounds off, because I believe one of her Barbed Tails attacks actually landed and caused the wounds, is what ended up happening. So things are looking really bad for Lady Domina with her general. And the attacks here between my Screamers as well as Wrathwick the Maw managed to cause 7 wounds onto Wrathwick the Maw as well, so that was pretty awesome. In return, I did lose a Screamer, so that was kind of sad, plus another floating wound onto one of my Screamers as well. But for the amount of damage these guys cost onto that War Hydra, it was well worth the sacrifice on that part. I'm really impressed with these Screamers as Tzeentch. I didn't realize how powerful these guys really were. They're very, very quick, and against monsters, they just literally eat them alive, so that part was kind of cool as well. So pretty epic combat here on the left-hand flank. Combat over here on the right-hand side was absolutely brutal. My Chaos Spawn had no problem just eating those poor Dark Riders alive like it was nobody's business. So those guys got killed to the man, and now they're currently being digested by mutated creatures from the Warp, which is always kind of a cool thing to think about. And during the Battle Shock phase, the rest of her Dark Dread Spears are located right in the middle of the table. They fled. She had to roll a d6. She rolled like a 5, so she finally rolls high, but she didn't need that roll high for a Battle Shock test. Her Dread Spears ran away, which is pretty unfortunate for her. So good for me, not bad, not good for Lady Domina. So I mean, that's a lot less unit of 20 Dark Elves I got to worry about killing here in a little bit. However, to get some of my charges off as well as some of my combat off, I did have to use up 3 of my Destiny dice in order to get that happening. So because of that, I got 6 more dice left. But then again, it's not so bad. I do have a magic spell that allows me to replenish 1 magic die, plus a command ability that allows me to do another one as well because of my Battalion traits abilities. So, not so bad there. So that takes us directly to the top of turn number 2, and this time Lady Domina won the initiative again, so she gets to go first again for turn number 2. So this is the picture that was taken of the board after move phase with the Darkling Covens, and as you can see here, for the most part, Lady Domina starts withdrawing and starts retreating back as quickly as she possibly can and disengaging in close combat, and it makes perfect sense as to why she's doing it. I mean, her general is carrying 8 wounds, one of her monsters is carrying 7 wounds at the same time. I have some really beast things going on as well. I got some really powerful shooting, so she moves back her dark shards a couple inches as well, so that way she's out of range of any of the attacks as well. And what she's trying to do is I can see from the, I can kind of see what she's trying to do. She's trying to pull back her army closer to that corner, so that way I'm forced to move and to engage her as quickly as I possibly can, maybe lose some of my shooting abilities, and at the same time she can also shoot with her repeater bolt throwers as well. So it's a pretty smart tactic that she's kind of doing. She kind of came forward, fixed me and baited me, now she's pulling me back into kill zones, and now I just realized when I saw this that I am now within range of those bolt throwers for my Lord of Changes, and things can get bad really quick if I'm not careful. So that pretty much makes the move phase for Lady Domina. I forgot to mention, she also gives Inspiring Presence to one of her Dark Shard units, the one that's on the right hand side of that Autumnal Forest there on the left, so that way those guys don't worry about taking a Battle Shock test if I manage to shoot them. So that was pretty cool for that part. Here's a close-up of her general, as well as Rathwick the Maw and Veers of the Broken back in behind those forests. That way they can take some cover from those trees, and as well at the same time be protected from me shooting at them anymore. And here's a close-up of her 2 units of Dark Shards, also pulling back as well. Because she pulled these guys and they retreated, they will not be able to shoot, I believe, in the next turn, or turn coming up, because when you disengage like that, you lose the ability to shoot. It's not like 40k where you can do that and still shoot. In Warhammer Age of Sigmar, you pull back and you can't shoot with infantry. So, yeah, pretty smart move for her, because she's trying to buy time, because if I get in close combat with her, it could prove very bad for her if she's not ready for it. During the shooting phase, she opens up with her 2 bolt throwers onto Galroush, which is my newly summoned up Lord of Change. I managed to inflict 11 wounds onto him as well, so this guy is now carrying 13 wounds. Now, Lord of Change has 14 wounds, so he's got 1 more wound left, so things are not looking good for Galroush. But at the same time, though, I also summoned up this guy from the warp when I cast my Summon a Lord of Change spell, so it kind of works out evenly. So if he dies, it's not so bad, because I did summon him up, so that was kind of nice. But yeah, things are not looking good for that guy. I mean, it was a ridiculous amount of wounds that guy was taking. It was pretty awesome. Alright, so there's no combat or need for doing any kind of battle shock test. We go directly to the bottom of turn number 2 for the Disciples of Tzeentch this time. The very first thing we do for the hero phase, I roll off on my Lord of Destiny dice. Basically, I roll before on that part, so whenever I roll a 4, I get to re-roll if I want to. Not as good as the 1, but you know, I'll take what I can get at this point. So that command ability goes off. At the same time, I also cast Tzeentch's Firestorm with Galroush. I figured I might as well use him because he just has so many wounds located on him as well. I rolled a 6 and a 2, so because of that, the 2 automatically becomes a 6, and I get Tzeentch's Firestorm off. Which allows me to put the last remaining mortal wounds onto Rakath Daechir and manage to kill that High Beastmaster as well as his Manticore. Even though he was trying to make a run for it, it's kind of like Galroush's like, "Come here, boy, where do you think you're going?" And I'm having a shot with his Tzeentch's Firestorm. So that part was pretty epic as well, so I thought that was kind of cool. After getting out Tzeentch's Firestorm, I do try to cast Summon Up Another Lord of Change. Unfortunately for Galroush, he rolled a 2 and a 2, so because of that, none of his magic spells went off on that part. However, for Skorkalikos, I did cast his Wellspring of Arcane Might demonic ability, which gives every demonic wizard from Tzeentch within like so many inches of him a +1 to their casts, and now I got +1 off onto Skorkalikos. And after which, I take Skorkalikos and I cast the spell Fold Reality onto my unit of Screamers. That in turn brings back one of my Screamers back from the dead, and I still got 1 carrying a wound, so now my Screamers are backed up to maximum strength in that part, which is also pretty awesome as well. I then also take Skorkalikos. I decided to cast Infernal Gateway, and I aim my Infernal Gateway at Veers of the Broken, the War Hydra. Skorkalikos managed to put the last few wounds onto that guy as well, managed to blow away that War Hydra off the table, which is absolutely freaking amazing on that part. Man, these guys are really good with this list. I'm really loving this list. This list was designed to be a very shooty list as well as a very magical based list, and so far all the synergy for this army is working out really good. I killed a Manticore, I killed a War Hydra. Things are just looking up for this army list at this point. And because I'm playing a Disciples of Tzeentch army and my magic doesn't stop, I take my general, Cold Hellbrass. He casts Mystic Shield onto my unit of Chanters of Change, which are my 10 Carrick Alkalites in the left-hand flanks. Now they got +1 to their armor saves. I also take my Magister, cast Shield of Fate down onto my unit, the Coven of Morpheus, so that way they could also get additional little saves to their armor save as well. And I also take Caliban, the Shepherd of the Waste, and he casts Infernum, Arcane Infernum, onto his unit of Pink Horrors as well. Give those guys +1 to wound as well as +1 to hit as well. So like I said, a lot of buffs going on for this army. I really like this energy. I like all the skills I'm getting on my guys, and the additional buffs. Things are looking good. And then finally, I take my General, uses Master of Fate ability, roll a d6, I rolled a 5, so because I get another additional die pool put into my Destiny dice, this one ended up being a 6 as well. So things are definitely going really well for this army. I really like the build that I have with the Arcanite Cabal Battalion attached to these guys. Things are looking pretty good. So with Hero Phase over, we go directly to the Movement Phase. As you see, I start making my advances towards my enemy as well. On the left-hand side, I move both Skrakalikos as well as Galrash over the left-hand side on the other side of those woods. That way they get a good beeline shot to those 2 bolt throwers on the top of that massive tree stump. My plan is to just rod a sorcery those guys right off of it, just open up with 46 shots from my 2 Lords of Change. At the same time, I also move over my Screamers of Sneech, my Clover Space. They have a good 16-inch movement, so what I do is I kind of make them cut catty corner across that unit of, I believe those guys in the Morning Dawn. That's the left-hand unit of Dark Shard as well. Managed to kill a guy with a mortal wound with their Sky Shark ability as well, and then kind of tuck him in over there in the right-hand flank, staring down Wrathwick the Maw. My plan is to have him charge in during the charging phase, and then swarm Wrathwick the Maw, or hopefully consume that guy by eating him alive. Is pretty much what I'm going on for that one. As with the rest of my army, I just maneuver up my spawns. I roll the 2d6 for those guys and get the position on the other side of that forest. Same thing with my Mutilate Vortex Beast, the Shadow of Innistrad. I give him the kind of position within range to use his Aura of Madness ability. For the rest of my army, I pretty much move them up just like their normal speed. The Chanters are changed. The left-hand side go between that forest and the standing stones there in the middle of the battlefield. I also move up my Dunwich Horrors up 5 inches as well. Right behind them, of course, is Caliban, as well as my Changelings, as well as Skeksis of Dark Crystals. I move up the normal number of inches forward, so that way they can also start shooting as well. They also put the, that right-hand unit of, I believe those guys are called the Golden Guard, I believe is what they're called. That other unit of Dark Shards on the right-hand side within range of both their Sorcerer's Bolts for my Pink Horrors, as well as the Icon Bearers for my Zangors, because if you have Wizards of the 9 inches of a Zangor unit, they get to, roll d6s for that, and on a 4-up they cause mortal wound, which is also really important. At the same time, I also run my Magisters, Barnabas the Scrivener, as well as my Coven of Morpheus. I run through that forest, and then the other side of that forest on the right-hand side. They're kind of hard to see at this distance, but I'll zoom in so that way you guys get a better look. And that pretty much makes up my movement phase on this one. Here's a close-up of Skrakalikos, as well as Galrash getting ready to put the heart on some bolt throwers, because those things are absolutely scary. And here's a close-up of my colors out of space, getting ready to swarm and kind of pull a Sharknado onto Wrathwick the Maw the Charybdis. So that's going to be kind of exciting to see. And here's a close-up of my my Chaos Spawn kind of moving forward towards that Golden Guard, that Dark Shard unit to the right-hand side. Right behind him I have the Shadow of Innistrad, and over on the left-hand side there you can see I have my Coven of Morpheus with my Magister who ran into that forest as well. So, during the shooting phase, as you can see in this picture, I take 2 of my Destiny dice and use them for my Lords of Changes, so that way I get 12 shots off of Galrash as well as 10 shots off of Skrakalikos, respectively, so that way they can shoot at those bolt throwers with maximum shots. And I randomize both those bolt throwers back to their basic elements, and they basically dissolve and disappear into the warp, with demons drag them straight back to hell, is basically what I imagine happening, because those bolt throwers are scary, and I'm just glad I just shot those things off the table. I don't care that I burned 2 Destiny dice to make it happen. It was absolutely worth it, and I can always generate more Destiny dice with the build that I have for this army. During the shooting phase, I concentrate fire with both my Horrors of Dunwich Horrors as well as my Chanters of Change as well. It wasn't as exciting as the last time I had my units converge and concentrate fire into one unit. I think I managed to kill 6 or 7 of those Dark Shards for the Morning Dawn, so not as impressive as when I had all 3 of my units opening at the same time and having all those bonuses and everything else like that. But I'll take what I can get, because my goal here, I'm still out of range of those repeater crossbows, so they really can't shoot me this turn on the next coming up turn unless they move, so that kind of works out in my favor as well. And yeah, a couple of shots landed from there as well. So with the shooting phase over, we go directly to charge phase. As you can see from this overhead shot, I start committing some of my units. The first thing I do is I send Galrash, my newly summoned Lord of Change, as well as my colors out of space, charging right into Wrathwick the Maw. Now that guy is completely surrounded on both sides for a pincer attack. I have no illusions that my Lord of Change, Galrash, will die. He only has 1 wound left, but I just want to throw him in there and try to get some clicks in while I still can. At the same time, I also burn a couple of Destiny dice as well to make sure that my Dunwich Horrors charge directly into the Morning Dawn. So now those guys are engaged in close combat, and Same thing with Caliban of the Waste. I think I burned like a couple of points as well for him to get up there, so that way he's engaging in the enemy as well, and also lending his support to his pink horrors. On the right hand side, I do charge into my Chaos Spawn into the Golden Guard. The third one just couldn't make it, and I wasn't going to charge in my Muleth Vortex Beast because that guy is not really meant for direct combat, and everything else pretty much just stays where it's at because I'm out of range of charges. So that makes it the charging phase for this one. Here's a close-up of my Summon Lord of Change, as well as my Screamers getting ready to eat Rathric the Maw alive and just getting rid of him off the table. And here's a close-up of the Dunwich Horrors, as well as Caliban, the Horror Shepherd of the Wastes, getting in grips with the Morning Dawn and getting ready to put the hurt on those guys as well. It's also kind of nice too because these guys also got +1 up from their Arcanum Infernum ability, so these guys will get +1 to wound as well as +1 to hit in close combat as well. And that also applies to their commander too, the Ogroid Thaumaturge. So that would be kind of interesting to see exactly how that goes. And finally, here's a close of my 2 Chaos Spawn getting in grips with the Golden Guard. I'm not expecting these Chaos Spawn to survive. I just kind of did that to pin them into close combat and kind of force my opponent's hands. So that way Lady Domina is forced to deal with these Chaos Spawn. It might affect her shooting ability, it might not, but at this point though, I'm just kind of going in there for body count because these Spawn cost me nothing, and I don't lose anything if I lose them. And finally, here's a close of my Destiny Pool dice. The only thing I got left are 2 1s, which I ended up having because I burned up most of my dice and my charges, which is perfectly fine. I mean, these things will become really handy, especially for Battle Shock tests, especially for my pink horrors, because if I roll a 1 for their Battle Shock test, I summon up D6 more pink horrors, which is always a good thing. Alright, so we go directly in the combat phase. This picture is taken directly after the Battle Shock phase. As you can see, I do lose one of my Screamers from the Colors of Space. I lose the one that had the floating wounds on it as well, and I also lose Galrosh, my summoned up Lord of Change. But in return, though, the other 5 Screamers managed to eat that poor thing alive. The Cryptus is now digesting within the bowels of flying manta rays, so that part was kind of cool. And then combat between the Dunwich Horrors as well as my Ogroid Thaumaturge against the Morning Dawn was absolutely brutal. I managed to cause 3, I think, mortal wounds from the Mighty Bulk ability that the Ogroid Thaumaturge has, as well as a couple of his close combat attacks. I was able to kill a couple more Dark Elves as well. Between the attacks from my Pink Horrors as well, I managed to kill a large number. I think I managed to kill about 6 or 7 of them as well in the process of doing so. In exchange, I did lose 3 Pink Horrors, but that was okay though because they automatically split and they become 2 Blue Horrors. As you can see, I got 6 Blue Horrors that represent the fact that they were gone. After all the damage was totaled up, as well as Battle Shock, that army would just basically poofed into darkness because of all the casualties those guys took as well. These guys are really deadly. Pink Horrors are extremely versatile fighters, especially when you throw Arcanum Infernum on them and give them the support of a Ogroid Thaumaturge. That Ogroid Thaumaturge, I was really originally thought that the model was kind of weak. I was like, what's so great about this model originally? But now I understand why people include him in his Tzeentch Arcanite army. That guy is a beast. He can cast, he can support his pink horrors, he can fight, he can cause mortal wounds. That guy is a monster. And as for my Chaos Spawn, they didn't inflict a single wound onto the Golden Guard, but the Golden Guard managed to wipe out my 2 Chaos Spawn like it's nobody's business. It was kind of sad to see that happen, but then again, these are Chaos Spawn. They're not exactly champions of fighting, they're just kind of there to occupy space and to, play Mary Hall with your opponent's line. So my opponent Lady Domina just put those 2 guys in the dirt like it was nobody's business, so that was pretty awesome as well. We then go to the top of turn number 3, and actually I went initial on that part, but my opponent Lady Domina just kind of bottles out on that game at that point. She takes a look around the table, realizes the only thing she has left is her unit of Dark Shards. I pretty much have my entire army, and she just kind of gives up to that point. So that, ladies and gentlemen, takes directly to the end of the game. As you can see, there's only 1 unit of Dark Shards left. Pretty much my entire army is still pretty much on the table for the most part. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to the After Acts report because this battle report is now officially over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for the After Acts report. This is the part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time they would do battle. This is the After Acts report for Age of the Realms, Warhammer Age of Sigmar battle report number 27. It was a fight between Lady Domina with her house Daechir, the Golden Reavers of Skyros, versus my Esoteric Order of the Thousand Suns, my disciples of Tzeentch. So first of all, I really like the build for this army. So far, my army dominates in the hero phase, is very, very fast moving in the movement phase, great shooting, awesome combat, and really good synergy for the rest of my army. So I'm really liking the way that this build is really working out, especially with that Arcanite Cabal Battalion. It's really, really nice. The only drawback to this army so far is got really low bravery, but you can't have everything. I guess I can kind of solve that problem if I drop the Arch Sorcerer command trait from my general and gave him, what's it called, Cult Demagogue, which gives him +2 to his bravery. That could kind of help fix things, but at the same time, though, I don't know. I just want to try out this army first with the magic ability, see how it works out for me. So far, what I know about this battle report is that Lady Domina's dice abandoned her during this battle. I've never seen so many 1s, 2s, and 3s being rolled in my life during this battle report, so I'm thinking that it has less to do with my tactical genius and more like I just got lucky because the dice gods were just done with and abandoned Lady Domina at that part, so I'm thinking that's really much had to do with it. Like I said before, I'm really loving playing this army with the new magic and shooting abilities in this army. It's very PPU, and I've never really played an army like that before for Age of Sigmar, so it's kind of like nice to have a difference on that part as well. As always, you guys, this was an awesome game, awesome opponent. Can't wait for the rematch, and we will make one of those happen really soon, here soon. As always, you guys, please feel free to like, comment, and/or subscribe. Your guys' input is always invaluable to us, as always. You can also check us out on Instagram as well as Facebook and Google Plus for all the latest and greatest on what we're doing for our hobby. Also, remember, we alternate every Sunday between Age of Sigmar 9th battle reports as well as our 9th Age battle reports, as well as every Thursday with Warhammer 8th Edition Fantasy Battle, as well as Necromunda. That's good news for this one, you guys. Tells me this one for Age of Sigmar battle report number 27 is in the book. We will see you guys later on the flip side. You guys stay classy. Peace out.